Thank you for joining us for the Integrate This podcast. We're excited to kick off part 2 today of our episode on creating and exploring chatbots. Last time, David and I had a lot of fun exploring and creating chatbots using Google Gemini and a really interesting way of combining ChatGPT with Canva using some of their Explore GPTs to help you create prompts which make great designs in Canva. If those are things that interest you and you haven't checked out last week's episode, you can pause this one, go back, check that one out, and then come back for some great ideas today that we have to share with you. And what we're going to be exploring today, first off, David is going to show us how a custom GPT can assist teachers in creating educational materials, which includes things like handouts and quizzes and graphic organizers, some great tools that teachers would use every day in their lesson plans, but also some ways to create some of those custom instructions that can help get that GPT to make those particular types of teaching materials for you. And sometimes it's great to create those things on your own, but if someone has already invented that wheel for you, let's take advantage of that. And so David is going to talk about that particular tool. Then I'm going to follow him, and I'm going to show you how I have used SchoolAI and a couple of the features of SchoolAI to design chatbots for special activities that I want students to engage in and be able to allow students to work with those chatbots in that safe space, that controlled space that SchoolAI has to offer. So, David, I know you're ready to kick things off for us here today. We'll get your screen up there and have you take us on a ride.
Sounds good. Yeah. So this one, I came across again, just, exploring GPTs. If you're in here and going to the education, I think you can find all sorts of interesting ones to check out and explore. But so this one that we're going to use today, though, is Educational Materials Design GPT, and the author of this GPT is Brian David Phillips. So, if you're using it and really enjoy what it can do, leave some positive feedback to the rating of this GPT. But we're going to do basically two things here, and we're going to just take both social studies example for ninth grade social studies, and we're going to do a fourth grade Minnesota ELA standard. And the idea behind this is to put in your prompt. So if we go to our prompt space here, and I'm just going to paste this in. What I did was similar to last week when we had the with our Canva, taking the standard of the, like, then we did science, but now we're looking at social studies, and grabbing the actual language that is found within the standards. So I put that in. This one is for U.S. History Era 7, U.S. and the World. And it's talking about technological changes on American society and popular culture in the post-World War II era. So we enter that in, and then if I hit send on this, what I found with this is that typically speaking, it's going to ask you for some follow-up questions. So first, it kind of processes what we put in. You're working with Minnesota ninth grade history standard 21, focusing on causation and argumentation, specifically in U.S. history era 7, right? Some of the things, just reiterating the language that was found there. Okay. And then what it does, just close this up. What it does is it breaks down, okay, possible materials that you could use for this standard. Make some suggestions here. Argumentative essay assignment with a prompt and includes a rubric, document-based question activity, interactive timeline and group discussion, and then project-based learning tasks. So you could spend a little bit of time, going through those, looking at what those might be. But if something sticks out to you that you would like it to create, that's when you get to the follow-up questions. So it says, would you like me to create one of these resources for you? If yes, could you provide the preferred format? So worksheet, digital slide, essay prompt, etc. Specific technologies or themes, that's actually a really good one to help it to dive a little bit deeper into maybe some of the conversations that you've had in class. So if there's a list of technologies that you're having your students look at, you could provide those to this system so that it tailor it to what you actually need. And then it asks, are there any existing materials or examples you want me to base it on? So that's another good one where you could take, maybe you've got some worksheets or things that you are using with the class, and this is going to be, providing more. But if there's a certain way that you want the output to be, or the final product that it produces to be, you could always feed it some examples by, uploading from your computer or your drive and pushing that to the GPT, so it knows what are you looking for in particular. For ours, what we'll do is I'm just going to say, I would like let's do the interactive timeline and group discussion. So we're going to say number 3, and I would like a worksheet produced from this, and we'll see what it does. So awesome choice. Worksheet title. Okay. So I would say too, it's important to check this more so that it's continuing to get everything correct, like your standard. Because I think one thing to be cautious of is if it starts trying to fill in gaps of things where it forgets what it is it's looking for. So just a good double check, I would say, on that. But then if we go down further, we get, our student worksheet. So part 1, interactive timeline research. Choose one post World War II technology. Fill out the table below. Okay, so here we've got a table. Gives you suggested technologies to choose from. So choosing a technology, year introduced, what was it, 1 to 2 sentences, how did it change daily life, impact on culture or society, and source used. Okay, then we go down a little further. Gallery walk and timeline discussions offers some instructions, discussion questions, and then even an extension activity as well. Okay, so some good stuff there. Again, you'll have to, whatever you're trying to have it produce, you'll have to have it go through and see if that's what you want it to be, right? But then at the end, it asks, would you like me to turn this into a printable PDF or Google Doc format? Add an answer key, rubric, or teacher guide for facilitating discussion, and then provide source excerpts for each technology. Let's try this. We'll just see what we can get out of it. Let's say, yes, I would like a Google Doc format, include a teacher guide and some source excerpts for each technology. And we'll see what it does here. I've done these before too, where when it gives our initial, like when it gives the ideas, I've also asked it to produce everything. So when we had, and we'll go back down, but when we had this part, the possible materials, in the other example I've done, I had it produce all of them, and it did that. So it did this same process like it did for the worksheet, where I asked it just for that. You could have it produce all of the things if that's something you want to do too. Okay, so here we go. So we've got a Google Doc format. We have a teacher guide, and then we have source excerpts for each technology. So we have television. Looks like they sourced the Library of Congress. Interstate highway system. We source Wikipedia. Commercial jet travel, same thing. Wikipedia. It looks like there's maybe a subpage of it or something. History of the United States. Yep, and then they change, right? So transistor computer, post World War II economic expansion. So you're seeing Wikipedia as sources, but the pages that are found are sourced from different pages. So microwave oven, National World War II Museum, another Library of Congress for suburban housing. You get a lot of different stuff in here. So space race, and then polio vaccine looks like there's several sources that you could click on and open to the side and see your sources there. So, okay, so that's our sources, which is great. We can go, you look at the teacher's guide. Maybe, you could always copy and paste this over, whatever you want to do. You could continue to maybe coax it into producing other things for you if you want to. But I think the fact remains that you get from the start, you get you start with a standard, let's say, you get some material options or different activities that you could do. From there, you kind of proceed into having it produce those things. And so you see a lot of stuff that you can pull away from it. And maybe when you're trying it, maybe you'll get where the Google Doc does work, or you can produce that PDF. But with this one in particular, you get a lot of different things. Even just going back to like the source excerpt stuff or the teacher guide, that's all great stuff that you could use too to your advantage. I do have one other example. So let's try the ELA standard example and see what we can. And maybe for this one, we'll actually try when it gives us multiple, we'll see if we can have it produce a bunch of different things. So this one is Minnesota ELA standard. Read critically to comprehend, interpret, and analyze themes and central ideas in complex literary and informational texts. The benchmark is identify the central idea, message, or moral of a text and one or two supporting details. So let's try this and see what it responds with. So I can help you create educational materials such as reading comprehension handout, short quiz, lesson plan outline, differentiated versions. Okay, before I get started, and this is, like I said, it tends, every time I've used it, it tends to ask some follow-up questions. So let's just do this. We'll say 4th grade. Let's say we want to do both. No specific article. Let's say all of them. And then we'll say for number 5, we'll say no preference on format. Okay, and then we'll let it process it. And I'll create a set of resources for 4th grade addressing both literary and informational texts. Here's what it's covering, a couple different options there. And then I'll use short, grade appropriate sample text, one literary, and one informational, to build these materials around identifying central ideas, messages, morals, and supporting details. Okay, so here we go. So we've got literary text, informational text, reading comprehension handout, and exit ticket. And then here's a quiz as well. So let's take a step back here. So we got reading comprehension. So let's look at that. So here's the text first. We have the literary and the informational, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4. So provides the text. We got 2 different ones. And then, so reading comprehension, exit ticket, quiz, and then lesson plan outline. So remember too, with any of these, right, we have 4 different things going on here. So if there's one where you're like, okay, I would really like to focus on the reading comprehension handout, maybe you just don't do anything with 2 through 4 and you ask follow-up questions about, number 1, reading comprehension handout, and then asking for some changes or additions to it, making it longer, all those type of things. And you could play around with it from this point as much as you would like to get what you want. But that's a good example there of where it's producing multiple things for one prompt. And I would even say too, that for ours, we didn't really give it a whole lot, but you could feed it a specific story or article. So if you already have a literary or an informational text on hand, that's where, again, we go back to what we talked about before. Maybe you upload it from your computer or your drive and feed it into this system so that it has an informational text to work with and then produces the 4 different sets of resources here off of what you've already fed it. And that might even be a better way to go, because you've got some stories in mind that you would like to read with students. So there's two examples there. One from upper level social studies, and one from ELA lower level that you could use. Not limited to that. As always, you can do whatever examples you want, play around with them as much as you want, and get these systems to do what it is you want them to do. But again, explore GPTs. You'll search out the Educational Materials Design GPT, and once the let's see here, once that pops up, you can just click on it and go ahead and start the chat. And then what that does is it will add it over here. You'll notice that mine is up in this area. What I tend to do with mine is there'll be like when you have a GPT, you can save it to your sidebar, and yours might be down here. So it's actually a good pointer for anything that you want to keep readily accessible.
Yeah, that's great. I love how in ChatGPT, even if you don't have the paid version of it, you can still find all of those that have been made public by others who have created them. So, I think that's great to point out where you can find those different GPTs. And I think one of the things that we will do too is make sure in the show notes to put a link directly to the Educational Materials Design GPT.
Yep.
And give a shout out to Brian one more time. So the next tool that we're going to explore here in our chatbot episode is how to use SchoolAI. Probably a tool that if you've watched our show, that we're pretty familiar with, and my guess is that you probably are as well. And so we're going to use SchoolAI to help us create a chatbot that we're going to then send out to students that are in our class so that they can interact with the chatbot and get a great learning experience from it. Way back in our first season, and we started to explore chatbots a little bit. Really, the only tool on the market at that time was OpenAI's GPT Chat Builder. And one of the things that I did was to explore this idea that I had of creating an historical choose your own adventure style experience. And so we're going to play around with that using the tools within SchoolAI now to create that activity that students can complete as well. So there's a couple of parts of SchoolAI that we're going to need to be a little bit familiar with. And if you've watched our update that we did on SchoolAI this season as well, you'll know that there's this area in here called assistance, and that there's all these different tools that teachers can use to help them create an experience that they're going to then share eventually with their students. And so I'm going to choose this one right here. It's called Space Designer. It says, I can help you design fun, engaging spaces for your students. And remember, those spaces are going to be those basically it's a chat interface that the student is going to be able to interact with the AI in that controlled environment. So really that space, if we think about it, is really a chatbot that the student will interact with. It's a GPT. So we're going to have them, we're going to use Space Designer here to have SchoolAI help us develop kind of the prompt that we're going to use to drive that chatbot. And so I've started a prompt here, or some ideas that I had that I typed in on a different page that I'm just going to paste in here rather than trying to type it all in front of you. And this is just me kind of saying, here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create a space for students to progress through a choose your own adventure style experience. The adventure is going to be in a historically accurate period of time of history. The student would interact as if they were actually there, so it immerses the student into the story. The student is presented with a story that progresses to a moment where they need to make a choice. The space would then offer 2 or 3 options for the student. The story would then resume factoring in the choice that the student made to the development of the story. This would progress for 5 or 6 rounds before concluding and asking the student to reflect. So I don't know, I haven't tried this here in SchoolAI before, but I thought it would be kind of fun. Let's see what it comes up with for us in this space designer. So it says this thinks it's a fantastic idea, but honestly, every idea that I've ever presented to AI, it always says is fantastic. And that's not just SchoolAI, that's all of the different ones. So it leads through some different steps here to help do this. So step 1 is defining the role, the historical period. Are there figures or events that I want it to include? To provide it a task, what's the main goal? Are they trying to influence an event, to solve a mystery, or just simply survive? In step 3, to outline how the story should progress. Are there pivotal moments where they should make them? And then are there any sort of set requirements? So I'm going to give them, okay, so here I'm giving it a little bit more detail. I say step 1, include a famous person. Okay, so that they're going to interact with them. Step 2, I want the student to survive the experience, hopefully not giving them a brush with death. Step 3, as an example, I say, when you meet George Washington crossing the Delaware, are you going to A, jump in the boat, B, warn the British that they're coming, or C, maybe you tell them you're from the future and let them know that the Hessians were all passed out and sleeping. And so these are some of the things that might help it build a better space. So I'm going to add that into it. And it's putting those things that are in there and adding them to that. And so now I get to this point. What I would like to do is ask it to draft the prompt that I can use when creating this space. So I'm going to just say, this looks good. Draft the prompt for the space. And you'll see that what it's going to do is to basically give me the text that I'm going to then take to the space creator, which we're going to look at next as soon as this is done. Perfect. So I'm going to just highlight this information here and copy that. Now I'm going to go into this area here called spaces. And when you go, actually, I could probably show you the homepage here, and you'll see these on here too. If you were on the homepage, you could click create a space, or you can go up to the tab on the top. We can discover, maybe someone else has done this already and look for one, kind of like David did in exploring the GPTs that were available in ChatGPT. This would be something similar to that. And if I clicked on it, you could see it's going to show you other ones that you've made before. But it's also going to show some other recommended ones that have been made by other people, right? But I'm going to go and I'm going to use this to create a space. Okay. And I've got this spot here where I can go create. And I'm going to call this historical choose your own adventure. Okay. Now, remember that part that I copied from the Space Creator Assistant? I'm going to now paste into the AI prompt, right? So it's telling me these will be good instructions for that chatbot to interact with. Then I'm going to go through and I'm going to add that it generate all of the rest of the fields under the optional details. So what it's doing is it's going to design a cover image that will be what people see when they go to your space. It noticed you gave it an interactive American Revolutionary War adventure. So because I added things about Washington, it's going to try to clue it to that time period. If I wanted to fix that, I could probably go and change some of the description that's up there. But I think for our purposes right now, you're going to see it's going to work pretty well. And it added in a nice little image there. And I'm going to say, hey, okay, let's just skip this preview part. So let's save this. Let's save it first. Okay. When I save it first, what it's doing is it's reviewing this thing to see if this would be a space that meets their standards to add to that public directory. And If it didn't meet the public directory requirements, it would say you could still use this space. It's just going to be for your own. And so it took it, it created it. Now, when I'm ready to share this with students, I'm going to go click launch. And you'll notice that it's going to provide two different ways for me to share this to students. I can add this directly to Google Classroom if I have my SchoolAI account synced with my Google Classroom account. Even if I don't, and I just want students to use this, I can share this to them by giving them either a QR code that they can scan or a link directly to this particular space. And I could copy this and I could just paste that for them in a spot where they can access it. Excuse me. And then they're going to be able to interact with it. So I'm just going to copy that here right now. And I'm going to go open up a new tab. I'm going to paste that into this new tab that it opened up for me. So I'm going to just say, my student, I'm named Jeremy, and I would like to join. And it's going to open up this adventure for me. So now I'm here. It says, are you ready to jump into this epic tale of the American Revolutionary War? Yes, I am. And now it's going to start building in this story. Okay. So you'll notice here again, and this is kind of like what David had mentioned too, that's part of that prompting process, right? Sometimes you got to go back and rework it and iterate it. It gave me 2 sentences of a story here. If I wanted it to be a little bit longer than that, I would have to go back into those instructions and tell it to beef it up the length of the story. But still, you know, we're right here to where we were. What path do we want to choose? Well, let's say we want to be right in the action with George Washington, and here, then it's going to pick up and hopefully continue our story. Perfect. And as you can see, this part's a little bit longer. You know, if I was giving it feedback, I would say this is great. But it asks some more questions here. You know, what do you think would happen if it's successful? So it's getting me to reflect on some of that stuff here too. But I think you get the idea here that you can use both the space designer as well as the space creator within SchoolAI to create these different experiences for your students. Now, I'm also going to then jump back here to this tab instead, because what I want to show you about SchoolAI is as the teacher, I'm able to click on this and see the history of interaction that my student had with that chatbot. And I can go and review and make sure that that student is using it in an appropriate way. Which is, I think, one of the great things about SchoolAI is that you're able to do that with those different spaces that you've created, versus if I had them interact with, say, Gemini or even Gemini Gems or even ChatGPT, I, as the teacher, am not going to be able to see a history of those interactions. Those are kind of my ideas here. Now, how you're going to choose to create your own spaces for students, I'd be excited to hear more about. If you've got a great idea, hey, send us a message, drop a link in our comments, and we would love to promote those for you if you are willing to share them with us.
Really cool stuff. All right. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you could take away some interesting things from both the educational materials creation GPT and from what Jeremy was able to do with spaces there. And you can use them for your own classroom or whatever role you're in. I think there's a lot of great things between part 1 and part 2. And we hope you'll join us next time.